Every missing persons case leaves a question mark, a shadow, a void that refuses to stay silent. But certain disappearances carry a darkness so heavy that investigators remain haunted long after the file is closed. The Harrison incident is one of those cases. What began as a simple Christmas trip to a rural family home turned into a night so disturbing, so drenched in fear, that seasoned detectives still refuse to set foot near the property after sunset. Tonight you will hear the full story, not the shortened newspaper version, not the sanitized press release, not the whispered rumor repeated in grocery store aisles. This is the complete account, the interviews, the statements, the chilling recollections that were never released to the public. And once you hear the truth, you may never look at a quiet countryside window the same way again. The Harrison family, Mark, Helen, and their 2 children, Mike and Ping Mei, left the city at dusk on December 20th. They had been planning the trip for months. Work pressures, school fatigue, city noise. They wanted a break. They needed one. Their country home stood in a remote corner of Harrison County, a region so sparsely populated that the nearest neighbor was nearly a quarter-mile away. Or that's what the family believed. The drive always felt peaceful. You start seeing the tree line expand, the sky open up. It's quiet in a way the city never is. That night was no different, until we turned off the main road. From this point on, everything shifts. A dense fog rolled across the gravel. Trees on both sides seemed unnaturally tall, towering silhouettes bending toward the road like silent observers. It was strange. Usually that area felt welcoming. This time, it felt like the woods were waiting for us. The SUV slowed as Mark leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. A shape stood beside the driveway entrance. Tall, rigid, motionless. He wasn't wearing proper clothes for winter. No hat, no gloves, just this dark coat, really long, almost touching the ground. They all saw him, but no one spoke, and sometimes silence screams louder than any words. He didn't wave, didn't acknowledge them, didn't move. His posture was so unnaturally still that for a moment Helen believed it might have been a scarecrow someone placed as a prank. But then his head turned. Just the head, not the shoulders. The movement was smooth, too smooth, like a mannequin rotating on well-oiled hinges. His eyes tracked the vehicle all the way past him. I felt like he was staring at me specifically, not the car, not Dad, me. Fear rises in the smallest details. A glance lingering too long, a posture too stiff, a stranger appearing where no one should stand. As the SUV rolled deeper into the driveway, the figure slowly stepped backward and disappeared into the tree line. The Harrison home had been in the family for generations. White paint, steep roof, wraparound porch. But stepping inside that night felt wrong. Not dangerous, not threatening, just wrong in a way that made the air heavy and stale, as if the house exhaled after holding its breath for years. It smelled like the place had been closed for decades, but we were there last year. Everything should have been normal. Mike found the first abnormality. Inside a hallway closet, deep gouges marked the wooden interior, long scratches trailing downward like something trapped inside had clawed for escape. Dad joked it was an animal, but it didn't look like that. The marks were too long, too straight, almost deliberate. The family brushed it off, they unpacked, they lit a small fire, they tried to settle. But the house had already begun whispering its secrets. At 10:30 p.m., while the family sat in the living room, decorating a tiny Christmas tree, the camera captured something chilling. A face, pressed against the window from the outside, white, expressionless, watching. When we first reviewed the footage, I assumed it was a reflection, but reflections don't breathe. And when you zoom in, you can see condensation forming on the glass in the exact shape of a human mouth. No one noticed in real time, only the camera caught him. The neighbor, silent, unblinking, observing a family who had no idea their peaceful holiday had already ended. Around midnight, Mike left his room for water. He noticed a faint glow outside, a dim, flickering light. A lantern, an old-style metal lantern with a warped glass dome, swinging slowly in the cold wind. At the bottom of the porch steps stood the same stranger, holding that lantern as if presenting it, inviting the boy to come outside. I froze. Everything in me screamed not to move. He didn't blink. didn't breathe. When the lantern dimmed, he just disappeared, like someone switched him off. The snow surrounding the porch remained smooth, untouched, not a single footprint. At 2:17 a.m., Ping-mei woke to the sound of footsteps, slow, dragging, uneven. She called for Mike, no answer. When she opened her bedroom door, the hallway lights flickered, and she saw him, the neighbor, inside the house. But his body looked distorted, limbs too long, torso slightly bent forward, neck stretched as though pulled from behind. He stood completely still, except for his jaw, which dropped open farther than it should. He whispered, "Stay." A single word, but warped, echoing, layered with something else underneath. A second voice buried inside the first. Peng-mei shut the door and didn't sleep again. The sheriff's warning hung in the air long after he left. The family barely spoke during dinner. The storm outside hammered the windows, violent and restless. The entire house felt like it was inhaling, waiting. Kayla cleaned in silence. Michael pretended to be calm, but Mike kept catching him flinching at every single distant noise. And Ping-mei. She had become withdrawn. She kept glancing at the hallway corners like something invisible stood there, watching her. Around 9:30 p.m., the lights flickered, again. But this time, they didn't fully come back. Only half the bulbs glowed, faint, trembling. Narrator, calm, cold. Electricity on rural backroads can fluctuate during storms. But what happened next didn't match any natural outage, because the lights weren't just dimming, they were blinking, in a pattern. Deliberate, rhythmic. Mic, interview audio, shaking. It wasn't random, it spelled something, I swear it spelled something. He wasn't wrong, Morse code. Short blink, long blink, repeated, over and over. Peng-mei whispered, "Daddy, it's spelling my name." Michael froze, his fork slipped from his hand. Kayla grabbed her children and moved them away from the window. Outside, in the darkness, the shape of their neighbor's house was barely visible through the trees, but a single lantern inside his window burned, steady, unmoving, like an eye that refused to blink, watching them, always watching. At 10:47 p.m., Michael finally made the decision. "We're leaving, right now." He grabbed the keys. Kayla rushed the kids into the living room. But then, all lights cut off, at once. The house didn't fade into darkness. It dropped into it, as if something had severed the power line with a blade. No wind, no thunder, just dark. Silence pulsed through the rooms. Then, something scraped across the front porch. Slow, heavy, dragging. Kayla, interview audio. I held onto my children and prayed. I'd never heard that sound before, but it sounded like something too big to crawl and too broken to walk. Michael crept to the door. His hand hovered above the lock. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Something was moving across the planks outside their door. Then came a whisper, so soft it barely existed. Mike, Ping-mei. Not shouted, not spoken, exhaled. Like the voice was pressed right against the door, lips touching the wood. Michael stepped back. The whisper followed. "Come out. I want to see your faces." The whispering continued, circling the house. And then, the knock. Soft, gentle, rhythmic. Not like someone trying to break in, more like someone asking politely. Too politely. They needed a weapon. Michael ran to the storage room to grab the old toolbox. That's when he noticed the basement door was slightly open, just a crack. He hadn't touched it. Nobody had. Mike swallowed hard. "Dad, it wasn't open earlier." A faint sound floated up from the basement. Not footsteps, not breathing. Something tapping, a single finger, or nail, or claw, striking the concrete floor again and again. Tick, tick, tick. Michael, armed only with a flashlight, opened the door wider. The air that rose from below was ice cold, metallic, almost sweet, like rust and wet earth. He descended the stairs, one step, then another. Halfway down, the tapping suddenly stopped. Silence. He reached the bottom. Then the flashlight beam revealed it. A long, thin object lying on the floor. Wood, rough, weathered, a piece of a broken sign. He picked it up. Even with dust on it, the carved letters were unmistakable. Welcome home, children. But below that, faint claw marks scratched a second message. I hear you. I know you. I own you. Michael backed up the stairs so fast he almost slipped. When he reached the living room, Kayla pointed at the wall. There were scratches on it, fresh ones, thin, jagged lines carved into the paint. Not random, letters, a sentence forming right in front of them, as if invisible fingers were writing it. Don't run! The kids screamed. Mike grabbed Pingmei, pulling her away. The scratching continued. New words etched themselves beneath the first. I'm already inside, Kayla snapped. She rushed to the back door, yanked it open, and screamed into the storm, "What do you want from us?" Lightning illuminated the yard for a split second, enough to reveal Dash Dash, a tall figure standing under the tree line, not moving, not blinking, not hiding, just standing there, watching. The flash faded. Darkness swallowed the yard again. But in that instant, they saw him. The stranger, the neighbor, except he looked different. His posture was wrong, his limbs were too long, his head tilted in an unnatural angle, and his mouth too wide, too stretched, as if something inside him was trying to pry it open from within. For the next hour, the family could only do one thing: survive. Lights flickered, walls whispered, windows rattled. Mike swore he saw a shadow crawl across the roof. Pingmei insisted she heard someone breathing behind her, even when no one was there. Kayla kept her arms around them both, but her eyes kept drifting toward the door, as